Good evening, everyone. Tonight is a regular meeting of the South Kingstown Planning Board. The date is Tuesday, June 27, 2023. The time is 7 p.m. The first item on our agenda is roll call. Joe Murphy.
Here.
Susan Axelrod.
Here.
Paul Jordan.
Here.
Robin Pothier.
Here.
Peter DiStefano. Elizabeth Karp.
Here.
And Maria Mack is here. Our next agenda item is approval of minutes. This includes minutes from the May 9th, 2023 work session, May 23rd, 2023 regular session, May 30th, 2023 special regular session. Are there any comments, corrections, or additions to the minutes? Susan?
Could I just ask, in one of the minutes we have here, we did a motion on approval or denial of a project. Just for my interest, is the language of that motion, should that be in the minutes so that in future life we can find that motion somewhere? Like, where would a person find that, a motion for approval or denial from a meeting?
Madam Chair, in response to the question from Susan, the motion gets recorded on the land records. So it's a more permanent record than just being included. And again, the final motion and its language was not set at that meeting.
I know that in the past we have put in our motions within the meetings minutes. So if the one that you're referring to, Susan, is the May 30th, perhaps we could pull those and that could be added into them, because that's been pretty consistent in the past as far as having motions. Is that what you're referring to?
It was what I was referring to, and I don't really know the protocol, but
So just for
Yeah.
clarity, and we have legal here tonight, the meeting minutes need to reflect the discussion and reflect what occurred at the meeting. The final motion includes additional language that was vetted by legal counsel that is in addition to the discussion that evening. So if we added that motion to the meeting minutes, there is language in there that was not part of the meeting that evening.
So, but historically, we have been able to find our motions in our minutes. So it would, I would suggest, if everyone is all right with this, let's pull the minutes from May 30th, have the motion added to that and with whatever verbiage staff feels is appropriate. It just seems like it's
Susan,
better for the public to be able to
Brian
find it.
Wagner, are you referring to the original draft motion that we started from? Because
No,
your ultimate motion was not the draft motion.
correct.
no. But I guess for me, sometimes when I'm trying to review what happened with a project in the past, it's easy enough to pull out minutes.
Right.
And so in this case, there was a lot of conversation and a lot of decisions that were made that aren't readily available. I mean, I don't know how to even go to land records to find that in the future if that topic ever came up again. Or I guess any of our approvals and denial motions.
I was just sort of looking for a clarification because
The original
what
motion,
became your motion was sort of came out of sort of a free-flowing dialogue.
Right,
with
by the end
members.
of the meeting.
So it, by necessity, it's not going to look like your motions where you simply accept the draft that staff has put
Right.
together. That's all I'm trying to suss out.
So back to the question, is everybody okay with pulling these minutes and having that motion added so that they reflect what the final motion was?
yes.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the remaining minutes? Oh, sorry, Peter, go ahead.
Just to clarify, so we could just cross-reference the book and page number where it was recorded, sort of like an editor's note in the minutes, just because, I was speaking to Jamie, that way the minutes written would reflect what was said at the meeting, and then it would also have a reference that you could use to find the decision, and you could even enclose a copy. But, just to clarify that this is what was said, and then this is the written decision that's referenced.
So I understand that, and it makes perfect sense, but rather than adding them to the minutes, would it be possible for the planning board to get copies of the final approved items rather than having to go look for a book and page number
you
to
can get
find
that.
it. I mean, it's just an extra step that I don't think any of us have time for.
Yep.
Exactly, and it's the same with the members of the public. If they want to
Sure.
go back and look at it, they should be able to access it as easily, which is why historically we have had our motions reflected in our minutes.
Okay.
But I think I get the point that if the motion wasn't finalized during the meeting, it's really not part of the minutes, right? So, it's a technicality, but.
Well, we went through the motion line by line and made changes and corrections. So by the end of the meeting, we did. Otherwise, we would not have voted had we not known what we were voting on.
Again, I'm comfortable making a footnote reference to the final recorded motion in the minutes.
That's fine.
But what about future decisions? Will they be then no longer reflected in the minutes?
No, so in all aspects, the majority of the motions you've been acting on have been pre-drafted, wordsmithed that evening, and
Rather than a complete dissection?
correct. So, it's changing a word here or there, so the meeting minutes reflect the changes you're voting on. There were a lot of clarification that needed to be done. So one of the commission members talked for 5 minutes about a number of issues to be included in the motion. We had to take that 5-minute dissertation and make it into 5 or 6 sentences. There was a discussion held on the subject matter, but those sentences reflect a discussion. They don't reflect actual verbatim recording of what was said. So again, I think Peter's suggestion of doing the footnote, the meeting minutes stand, but we'll call it an addendum or recognition that please be advised that the final motion is page XYZ in the town records, and we'll have it linked on our webpage.
Okay,
It's available.
that's the thing, is can it be easily accessed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's fine then. So if somebody would then like to, with that notation, someone like to make a motion to then approve all 3 of the minutes from the 3 meetings.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Robin. We have a second from Liz. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Our next agenda item is a public hearing on a major subdivision, combined conceptual master and preliminary plan, Cohen subdivision. Is there anyone representing the applicant?
Good evening. Mark Dowdell, Dowdell Engineering, representing Cecile Cohen.
Thank you. Would you like to give a brief description of the project?
So the project, as kind of shown in previous meetings, is a 2-lot subdivision. Currently, the larger lot, the main purpose of the subdivision is to create a new home for Sibley and Cecile. Basically, a 1-story home. Right now, they live in a taller house, and they're trying to downgrade. So, the lot itself is quite large. They want to subdivide, bring it down. Relatively straightforward subdivision, but we did have to go for waivers for flexible frontage, and we're going to have a shared driveway. At the technical review committee meeting last month, we discussed a couple changes to the soil erosion control plan, which we will be making as part of the final plan. But we submitted all the public notice information. I have copies of the certified letters and the return receipts that came back the other day. So pretty straightforward subdivision, though, if you've reviewed the plans.
Yes. Thank you. Questions, comments from board members? Joe?
Looking at this, my only it's on. So looking at this, my only concern is on the new house, the proposed house, the driveway coming in seems to have a parking area or a turnaround, which would result in the vehicle headlights shining right on the neighboring property's house.
Okay.
Is it possible to either redesign or reposition that driveway or turnaround, or as a minimum, put a thick vegetation screen such that the headlights would not shine onto the neighbor's property?
Yeah, that could definitely be doable. You know, we do have quite a bit of room out there, and we could we could reorient the kind of hammerhead end of it to go west instead. I don't see why that couldn't work, just to completely avoid if somebody parks that way. But I guess, yeah, I can look into that. I mean, screening would probably work the best, right?
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments, questions? Anything from DPS with regard to the soil erosion changes suggested by the TRC?
I just had a concern with the dry well systems that they were proposing close to the house. I asked to have those adjusted so that they're at least 10 feet from the foundation so that you wouldn't get groundwater from the dry wells entering into the basement areas. And that was about it.
Yep, we'll address that with the final plan.
Very good. There are no other comments or questions from board members. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Come up to the mic and state your name for the record, please.
How you doing? I'm Stephen Catteray. I just have a question about, submitted with this plan is a yield plan. And that yield plan is a subdivision of 4 lots, and then that was the one from September. And then there was another one submitted in March, and the March one shows a 3-lot plan. So why is there a yield plan attached to it?
If you could just direct your question to the board, and then we'll make sure you get an answer. And do you have any other questions in addition to that?
It would be off that yield plan question, because the yield plan shows a road being put in as opposed to be using a driveway.
With these flexible frontage subdivisions, they need to demonstrate that they could actually put a road in, and then the revised plan, which reflects the flexible frontage provisions, does not have that road. It just has, as you could see, that shared driveway, which is viewed as better planning. So the yield plan is not what will be built.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because it was attached to it, you know
Right.
what I mean? I thought it would have been separated, and just that one subdivision of the 2 lots with the existing driveway and building the easement off of it would have been what was submitted, as opposed, because it was a little confusing.
It
As a
is
neighbor,
yes,
it was a
it is
little confusing, so.
Yep. Thanks.
We want to tell them we only have 2. Does he need to know there's only 2?
No.
Do I need?
Mr. Dowdell, if you can add anything to,
I agree. It is a little confusing with the yield plan and why we do that, but it makes sense after you're looking at the waivers, and that we just need to basically just show that, the number of lots that we could get if we wanted to go with a standard subdivision. So.
thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Hearing none, would someone like to make a motion to close the public hearing? Joe?
Okay, I'll make that motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion from Joe. We have a second from Paul. Is there further discussion?
I just want to know how the board feels about adding a additional condition of approval, which.
Yeah. Why don't we just finish closing the public hearing, and then we can make whatever necessary changes. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. All right, Joe.
I just want to know how the board feels about adding an additional condition of approval, which would require the applicant to submit a vegetation plan to mitigate or prevent the headlights from shining on the neighbor's property, and that screening plan to be approved by the administrative officer. Everyone okay with that? If they move the driveway, they don't have to do that. It sounded like he landed on a vegetation would be the easiest thing for them to do.
Well, it could be. I mean, it won't, the vegetation will address, say, a car coming out of the, the driveway, say, the house has some wiggle room, but, I basically was saying that, the vegetation screening would, give us a little bit more wiggle room potentially with the driveway if we do, but potentially move it, and it's based on site constraints or something like that, so.
I guess we could change the wording that they can, provide them the ability to work with the administrative officer to.
Madam Chair, I have suggested language that a note be added to the plans that a landscape buffer shall be added if the turnaround has any chance, and we'll change the word chance of having headlight intrusion on the abutting property owner as it relates to the turnaround, or that the final development plans under construction of a home, that turnaround is relocated. So it gets, and it's under the advent of the AO. So Joe, to your point, this is a hypothetical development plan upon submission of final home plans, that they have a choice to relocate the turnaround or provide a buffer
So you could,
if there's potential intrusion.
right, so you could say something like, applicant will reduce the headlight intrusion by either redesign of the turnaround or a landscape buffer plan.
Yeah. And we'll do, and I think it should be a note right on the proposed lot, so that anyone purchasing it isn't reading meeting minutes, isn't reading a motion, it's actually on the lot to be developed.
Does that satisfy your concern? Anything else from anyone?
Madam Chair, the only other item would be in that if Joe's proposing to add an item to the motion, is that the dry wells be located no closer than 10
Yes.
feet from the foundation. So there'd be 2 items.
So we have 2 additional items to the conditions of approval. The one referencing the headlight intrusion, the second one that we had comments from DPS with regard to the dry well system being at least 10 feet from the foundation. If there are no other changes, would someone like to make the motion for approval?
I'll make that motion. The South Kingstown Planning Board hereby grants combined conceptual master and preliminary plan approval to the Cohen Major Subdivision, a 2-lot major subdivision for single-family development located on 2300 Post Road, Cecil Cohen, applicant owner. The approval is based on a plan entitled Preliminary Plan, Proposed Conditions, Cohen Major Subdivision, Assessor Plat 79-2, Lot 5, situated in the town of South Kingstown, Rhode Island. Sheet 2 of 4 dated March 14, 2023, prepared by Dowdell Engineering, LLC. This approval is also based upon the following finding facts and conditions of approval. Findings of facts A through L, conditions of approval 1 through 10, with 9 and 10 reflecting the discussions of this evening.
We have a motion from Joe. Do we have a second? Second from Peter. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you,
By the way, that part of along Old Post Road in Perryville is a lovely part of South Kingstown. Anybody that thinks that we're no longer rural, all they need to do is drive along that area. It's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, it is. Thank you.
Our next agenda item is a request for extension of combined master preliminary plan approval, major land development project, Hampton Place full build-out. Is there anyone representing the applicant?
Yes, my name is Brian King from Crossman Engineering, and I'm here on behalf of Chatham Properties. The request is to get an extension to the combined master preliminary plan approval for Hampton Place. The original approval was in May in 2015. This site is adjacent to the Koch Eye property across the street from the government center. And in the last few years, the owner has found the office market to be unsettled. He has not been able to find a user for the 3 proposed new buildings. Once he does get a user, he definitely plans to file for the final plan for this, this development. Since the approval, this development is still in accordance with the comprehensive plan. It still meets the zoning ordinance setbacks, and the stormwater approvals from DEM are still valid.
Very good, thank you. Questions from board members? Any comments from staff?
You have a support from the staff on the request for the extension. You have had no regulatory changes that significantly impacted the prior approval.
Thank you, Jamie. If there are no other comments or questions from board members, we have a draft motion on page 2 of the staff comments. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll go ahead and make them.
Go ahead, Liz.
The South Kingstown Planning Board hereby extends the combined conceptual master and preliminary plan approval for the Hampton Place full build-out major land development project, a proposed 4-building, 1 existing full build-out development plan with 3 new buildings totaling 40,000 square feet in floor area, AP 50-4, Lot 24, located at 4847 Tower Hill Road for a period of 1 year or until August 1st, 2024. The extension is based on the following findings of fact and conditions of approval. Findings of fact A through F, and conditions of approval 1 and 2.
Thank you. We have a motion from Liz. Do we have a second? Second from Peter. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are looking for a TRC member for the July 12th TRC meeting. Any volunteers? Susan? Morning? Thank you. If there's nothing else, motion to adjourn?
Second. Third.
This has to be the quickest meeting.
I think it does. Phenomenal. Motion from Peter, second from Paul. Was it Paul or was it Robin? Robin.
Everyone.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Sure.